What's good? What's good? It's the one and only, but what do I know? Boxing coming back at y'all with another one, man. So we got Chris Eubank Sr. in the news, man. He is not happy at all, right? If you guys don't know, Chris Eubank Sr., who is the father of Chris Eubank Jr., is not happy with this fight that's going on between him and Conor Ben, right? Now, at first he was opposed to the fight, but the first time the fight was going to be made because Chris Eubank had to come down. I think the agreed upon weight was 157 pounds. He was not happy with that. And for y'all that don't know, and I didn't even know this, you guys should go check out the interview with Chris Eubank Sr. speaking on this fight as to why he does not want this fight. Now, I did not know that Chris Eubank Sr. had a brother that used to box, and his brother passed away from boxing. And Chris Eubank Sr. pretty much is at a point in his life where he's just, he just lost his son. I believe it was 2 years ago. He lost his other son. That I don't think it had anything to do with boxing. I believe it was like a car accident or something. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I know for a fact he just lost his other son, a few years ago, and now he's pretty much afraid for his Chris Eubank's life and what he's doing and stuff like that. Now, I was watching 78 Sports TV. Shout out to my uncle, 78 Sports TV. He was speaking on this situation, and I agree with what he was saying. Like, listen, that's still your son at the end of the day. And though you might not be happy with what Chris Eubank Jr. is doing, I respect that. I respect everything that man says about this fight, because Chris Eubank Sr. pretty much came up at a time where boxing just meant a lot more. It was more of a gladiator sport. Now it's more of a business circus, or a circus business. So you know what I'm saying? Like Chris, I see where Chris Eubank Sr. is coming from, but at the very end of the day, this is still your son. And though you might not agree with the fight or whatnot, I still feel like you should be there to support your son in every aspect or whatnot. But let's go ahead and get into what Chris Eubank Sr. had to say about this fight, and then we'll drop a little bit of our opinion right afterwards. All right, so let me go ahead and get into the article, and I want you to tell me, like, do you feel like he should, support his son no matter what, or do you feel like he should pretty much stick to his guns, or what? Because I'm gonna be honest, bro, I'm really growing to like Chris Eubank Sr. And one thing about it is Chris Eubank Sr. is gonna always be honest. He's a very honest person, whether you want to hear it or not. So, I want to know, after you guys hear this article, do you feel like Chris Eubank Sr. should more so just, hey, bro, just stand by your son regardless, that's still your son, or does he need to stick with the principles? All right, let's go ahead and get into it, though. All right, so shout out to Boxing News 24. It says Chris Eubank Jr. rips into son ahead of Ben clash. He says, you're a disgrace. All right. Chris Eubank, the legendary former two-weight world champion who carried the British boxing with dignity, pride, and class through the 1990s, has delivered a brutal message to his estranged son, Chris Eubank Jr., just days before the fight with Conor Ben. Speaking to Seconds Out, it says, okay, my bad. I just wanted to make sure I gave the shout out. It says the iconic figure didn't hold back, laying down the kind of truth few in today's sports have the guts to say. Chris Eubank Sr. on the egg incident, I didn't teach you that. Oh, wow. Damn, bro. Bro, Senior be keeping it 100, bro. Like, Senior be keeping it 100. It says, Senior, a man who lived by a code of boxing nobility, was disgusted by Junior's behavior in the build-up where he smashed a raw egg into to Ben's face. Junior, you're smashing the egg against this guy's face. I taught you that? I didn't teach you that. Who taught you that? Did Karen teach you that? I believe Karen is his mom. I believe that's Chris Eubank's mom. He made it clear that he made it clear this behavior was far beneath the standards of it. I'm sorry, y'all. He made it clear this behavior is far beneath the standards he fought to uphold. That's disgraceful. I'm gonna stand in your corner, ? You must be mad. I will never be in your corner. You're a disgrace. At £100,000 fine wasn't enough to paper over what Eubank Jr. saw as a betrayal of everything boxing and his name stands for. So he pretty much feels like, if you guys know Chris Eubank Sr., bro, he's a very, very he carries himself with a lot of dignity. Just a very, very classy man. I would even just go to say, like I've stated before, like it's probably the most bougiest man I've ever seen before. But he he carries himself with a lot of class. If you guys watched the whole, I don't even, before, I'm talking about years before this was but even before their sons came on the scene, I remember watching YouTube videos of Chris Eubank Sr. and Connor Ben, and the interviews. I don't even know why I was watching it. I think maybe that was this was around 2012 or something. The video, I know one of the videos I saw, this is how old it was, back when YouTube, it was this channel, it had this blue screen and this long word with a whole bunch of O's or some shit like that, and then it came on it was I'm just talking about a long time ago, probably 2011, maybe even 2010, when I was watching these videos, studying going back studying the rivalry between the two. And I don't know what caused that. I think maybe at that particular time I might have been watching I think that was around the time David Haye was chasing the Klitschko's around, and I might have just been interested in seeing British boxing and all this type of stuff. I don't know, but I remember watching videos of how Nigel Benn would just pretty much just talk about how he hates Chris Eubank Sr. Had just didn't like him, and Chris Eubank just always carried himself just with just dignity. He just probably he's just a classy dude. He didn't go back and forth with dude. He even stated I don't hate the man, that's a very strong emotion. He's just a very, very classy dude, bro. And you know what I'm saying? I like I stated, bro, I've really grown to like Chris Eubank Sr. I really have, man. If I used to see videos of him and think man, I don't know if I would ever even be able to talk to this type of guy, man. Growing up, I even remember J. Leon Love. Sorry, I know I'm getting off track, but I remember J. Leon Love doing an interview, talking about how he was a, kind of a prick or whatnot, but he probably told the truth about J. Leon Love. I'm sorry, but anyways, I'm just grown to like him. But anyways, it says Eubank Sr., one of the few left who still defends the spirit of noble art, ripped into today's promotional scene. These promoters have no care for boxing and the standards of boxing and the noble art that boxing is. No bad language, no hitting people with eggs and then actually promoting it. Is this what we are now? Is this what it's come to now? Is this what we are? Is this who we are? I can just see him saying it too. Is this what we are? Is this what we've come to? You know how he does that thing with his fingers and shit like that when he talks. It's funny. He wasn't just disappointed, he was outraged by the way the current generation is being led to astray. Because if it's who we are, it's who your children are going to be. On the fight being sanctioned, you're all going the wrong way. Chris Eubank Sr. made it plain. He doesn't believe this fight should even be happening. A 147 against a 160 is against the rules. When Kell Brook was made to fight Triple G, which is a very, very, very valid, a great point. Another Eddie Hearn fighter too, it does seem like Eddie Hearn, when it's a big opportunity or when it's a big money grab coming into play, he will pretty much risk his fighter's career to get that money. Now, I don't think that's a good thing, but that's something that he does. Because I was actually gonna state that as an example, because Kell Brook is one. You guys remember, Triple G was actually supposed to quote unquote be in negotiations to fight Chris Eubank Sr. And then Eddie Hearn just out of the blue. It was just announced. It was literally out of the blue. Nobody saw it coming. Everybody was so fixated on Chris Eubanks and Triple G about to fight or whatnot, and just out of the blue, just like that, boom, it was just Triple G versus Kell Brook announced at 160 pounds, and everybody was kind of just what the hell? And truth be told, that probably, if I'm being honest, that was the beginning of the end, or that was the beginning of the downfall of Kell Brook's career, because Kell Brook, after he fought Triple G, he was never the same. Triple G broke his orbital bone on one side, then he had to turn around and fight Errol Spence the very next fight, and then Errol Spence broke his orbital bone on the next side, and what they say is if you break one orbital bone, the other one is more likely to be broken as well, especially in a fight or in a sport like boxing. So it was that happened or whatever. So it's damn, bro, And then, you know, he kind of like, I think he had like a few wins that weren't really like, you know, any big names. And then what happens? He fights Terrence Crawford and pretty much runs into like a stiff jab hook. I don't even know what to call it. It was like I don't know. It was like a mix between a jab and a hook. And then, you know, that's all she wrote. And, you know, he got a victory over Amir Khan, and that's a fight that he's been wanting a lot, right? But anyways, he said 147 against 160 is against the rules. When Kell Brook was made to fight Triple G, it's against the rules. That boy had his eye socket smashed. This is what happens. The promoters, to them, is just a game, but to the Warriors, it's a way of life. He called out the entire system for abandoning the foundations and that he and other greats fought to protect. It seems like I'm the one person saying, hold on a minute, guys. You're all going the wrong way. We have to go the other way. This way, where they're taking you, is to the pits. I'm not doing that. On his legacy and the birth of Matchroom success, Eubank Sr. also reminded everyone of what he brought to the sports, something that today's promoters have clearly forgotten. I'm the one that created Matchroom. Matchroom would not have superseded the other promoters at that time if it weren't for the spirit that led me through my career. He directly addressed Barry Hearn. And it's funny because I was just about to say, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Barry Hearn promoted Eddie. Barry Hearn is the father of Eddie Hearn, and Matchroom was basically gifted to Eddie Hearn through his father. But Barry Hearn promoted Chris Eubank, and I can't remember who promoted Nigel Benn. I don't know if it was I don't know who promoted Nigel Benn. But anyways, it says, Barry, I gifted you this. You helped me and I helped you. Without me, I couldn't give you the gift, but you passed it to one of your family members. Where are you, Barry? You go along with all of this? Refusing to play along, I will not be an accomplice. When asked if he'd appear in Junior's corner or show up to the stadium, Eubank Sr. was crystal clear. I will not be an accomplice to their stupidity or to their circus. He stands proudly against the circus that modern boxing has turned into. Everything I've done for boxing, I should have tarnished it being involved in some sort of circus. This was the wrong state. It's the wrong statement. It's a disgrace. The final words is respect. The final word, respect the legend. Chris Eubank Sr. isn't just a former champion. He's a standard barrier for what boxing once meant and what it should still be aspired to be. A fighter who won his belts the right way. A man who treated the sport and his fans with respect. A legend who fought 5 world title fights a year, not 3 fights in 3 years. That's true. That's back when boxing was actually, more of a sport than a business. But his voice might sound lonely now in an era obsessed with social media stunts and circus-like promotions. But make no mistake, Chris Eubank Sr. is a giant whose principles towers over the mess today's boxing has become. You might not agree with everything he says, but you can't deny he's speaking from a place few others even remember anymore. Real boxing needs more men like him. And I'm going to be honest with this situation right here. I 100% agree. Listen, I understand why this fight is being made. It's a money grab, right? I mean, it's nothing else involved in it unless if the WBC makes some type of father-son belt or whatever. It's a money grab. It is what it is, all right? But, I understand Senior's, point of view. I definitely understand. I think anybody that watches boxing understands Senior's point of view. It's it's a unfortunate situation. Chris Eubank Jr. does want his father to be a part of this, but hey, he's standing on principles. You can't blame him for that. But I want to know what you guys have to say. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. But what do I know?